Happy Thursday. Today I just want to, talk through some feelings, instincts I'm having about the runes in general and where I feel that my journey is going, and looking at sort of the practices I see by other people and where, I don't know, how I'm feeling about that, and whether we limit ourselves too much or perhaps that I am reaching too far. Now, my current feeling and theory is regarding Rune Power, sort of the greatest level of achievement with the power of the runes is to be able to draw energy from the runes and not need any physical focus for runes. Over the past month or so, on my runic journey, I felt very much that they have this natural energy, they're in this place to be drawn from, to tap into, and obviously it's down to the practice of the individual how you distribute their power. And obviously the most common form is to inscribe or paint, give the runes their shape, such as things like rune stones or bind runes, or say writing them down. And I am not saying that there is anything wrong with that. I'd say that is a natural progression of learning about runes and how to apply them. And what I want to say is what's led to sort of this line of thinking is looking at bind runes and some of the theories people apply to them, that by all means, if that's how people want to work with them, that's completely your business. All I really want to do is just touch upon how I would do things slightly different. And I'm not claiming to be a master, so you can make up your own mind, and that is perfectly fine. I'm trying to be guided by what is said about the runes in the Havamal. There's a very specific verse where the questions are asked about, do you know how to use them? Do you know how to paint them? Also, do you know how to sacrifice them? Do you know how to destroy them? Now, at the start of this series, back in the first few episodes of talking about your path to power, I was quite clear about one of the first things you need to focus on is protection. And I think with bind runes or runes in general, protection should still be a priority. And again, when I'm looking at sort of the books I have, an alternate or sort of the general practice of bind runes, there is this theory that your bind runes should be clear, concise, and not accidentally create other runes. For me, that feels very one-dimensional thinking, because if you are empowering the bind runes, you are putting the power from the runes into your bind rune in a very specific way, and if you are in control of it, you will not be creating accidental runes, conflicting runes or anything. You are empowering it very specifically, completing your ritual, your practice, and you are making that bind rune what you intend it to be. It's very unlikely, unless your practice is unsafe, that you're going to accidentally create other runes. For the most part, if visual aesthetic bind runes and that, they might not have the same purpose or intensity to be something that actually have power in them or will not get challenged. However, if you're thinking sort of about defenses, one of the best things is if someone is coming to attack your defenses, i.e. destroy your runes, sacrifice your runes, they have to understand the power that's in your runes. And this is where sort of the one-dimensional thinking is, if you're not accidentally creating runes and you are just sort of making them one-dimensional, simple, then someone coming to destroy that rune is going to be able to understand it a lot easier. Now, obviously, there are how you apply the rune physically. If you are creating them physically, sometimes they can be destroyed a lot easier, because if you've inscribed something onto some wood and painted it, and that's fairly easy to destroy. If something is empowered and in a place that can't be physically reached, and obviously someone is applying power to violate or destroy your runes, they've got to work a lot harder. And why make their job easier? They have to understand what, in particular your bind runes, not so much let's say if you've put an Ophala rune somewhere specific and an exterior force is pressing it and attacking it, they're going to know it's just an Ophala, let's say not just, but they're going to know it's an Ophala rune, and destroying that is going to be easier than having to question, is it sort of Ophala and what else is in there? Is Gabo in there? Or if in the bind rune, you're then sort of questioning, is, say, Kenaz in there? Or is it not in there? And then the attacker has to work harder. Your bind rune is safer, because if it's you that's created it or someone else has created the bind rune and they've done it in a safe and proper way, it's been created specifically for a purpose and empowered properly, and any sort of cunning appearances to it, that's something for an attacker to worry about. And if say they think that it's Kenaz hidden in amongst the bind rune and are trying to focus to destroy Kenaz, if Kenaz isn't even there, then they're trying to destroy something that isn't there, and your bind rune is safer, it's better protected. And also, depending how you are attuned to your runes, in theory you should be then able to respond, react. If you go back earlier in my series, obviously it's been very quiet for a long time, which is good. The runic protection I have put around our house is, now I'm at this stage of my journey, quite simple. And obviously I've had, what should we say, probing visits that have probably gotten through the runic protection, because my understanding at the time was very one-dimensional. But I have been able to handle trespass. Let's call them trespassers of negative energy, negative spirits. This is what I'm sort of really trying to get at in the practice of Rune Power. And the fact that really, ultimately, and I don't even know if I'll even reach that level of understanding, is to be able to say, again, draw the power of the runes and apply them without any physical foci. Don't get me wrong, that's where I'd like to get that sort of understanding and application, and I can feel that it is attainable. But I can also understand, and almost I will accept that I might not reach that, and I will need the visual foci. There's something very nice, aesthetically pleasing, they're cool. But it's how you're using them that's perhaps the most important thing. And really attuning your mind and power to seeing beyond sort of physical limitations. I think really one of the things that seems to support this is Odin is cunning. He can be sly. He understands this. I'm not saying that's sort of the defining traits of Odin. But we have to think like that, especially if you are using runes to protect yourself, your loved ones, your safe space, your sanctuary, your home. You have to be cunning. You don't just put up a brick wall and then a bulldozer comes along to knock down the brick wall. You reinforce it. You have things that the bulldozer can't see. You got to think like that, I feel, to make your antagonist or enemy an enemy. Think more, slow them down. Anyone really with enough time and focus can work out a defense. You shouldn't be making it easy for them. And this is really the bind runes being aesthetically pleasing, not accidentally creating additional runes that might work against what you're intending it to. That's really down to the person creating the bind runes and their control of their power, because you don't do that. Let's say, to my mind, the biggest thing I can think of is, as a comparison, and I'm sure to some extent it has no application to empowered bind runes, and I'm not assuming that Wardruna don't intend it, but you can look at the Wardruna symbol and look, sort of see sort of some obvious runes and whether there's accidental runes or not, or whether it's just a combination of all runes. At some point I'll probably focus on the Wardruna symbol in a more applied way, because every so often I look at it and go, well, I can see a Farlow and blah 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 blah, etc etc etc, and then I start thinking about what other runes there might be and if there's a hidden message at all, and that, and I just sort of, and then I kind of switch off, because one, I don't want to know, and or at the moment, and two, it's just sort of, it's not as important as the music itself. But that's a different conversation for a different time. Really, I just really want to talk about Rune Power, and sort of how you control it and how you apply it and how you work with it, really. And that's that's the current place where I am in my thinking. It's, if you are in control of it, you're not going to create accidental runes. Let other people who might want to attack your work think you have. But ultimately, with Rune Power, it should do what you create it to. And then you go from there. So yeah, that's my Rune Power, I don't know, theory waffle. I'm sure some people might be offended or say that I am wrong, and that's fair enough. At best, if you have listened to this, it makes you think about your understanding of runes, and maybe, I don't know, disagree with it. Cool. If you agree with it, then maybe that adjusts your way of using the runes. That's great. It's very much, there's a lot more to it than what appears to be in certain books. And only you walk your path. And I say, we can settle for basic understanding. There's no grades to it. I'm not about to sort of say, well, I feel like I'm a brown belt in rune magic. I'm still not a black belt in rune magic, and really the ultimate expression is you don't use any physical runes at all, and that means you're like a third Dan black belt rune master. I'm not really sort of comparing my power to other people. That only really happens if you're being defensive, and I've got no reason to be defensive unless people start to attack me, and then it's sort of, we'll deal with that as it happens. I say, I've done a few videos that cover sort of negative spirits and how I feel about them, and the fact that, yes, they have tried to invade my personal space. But really, that's the worst situation. All being well, you practice safely, you are safe, and your work is your work. Anyway, thank you very much if you've watched this video. Press the like button, subscribe, and thank you for watching. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.